First, let's talk about what's happening in Gaza, your reaction to the news this evening that 4 hostages have been rescued.
Well, we've long said that we want all the hostages to be released as part of an immediate ceasefire, which would also be used to get much needed aid into Gaza. We know the situation in Gaza is horrific. We know that tens of thousands of innocent civilians have been killed. So we need an end to this war, which involves an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and that aid getting in urgently that is so desperately needed.
Okay, thanks so much. Let's talk a bit about domestic politics now, because you want to talk about business rates. You want to overhaul the business rate system, but what would you replace business rates with then?
Yeah, that's right. So we want to replace the current system of business rates with a new system that rebalances the burden away from high streets and makes sure that online giants pay their fair share. Because at the moment, we know that high streets are important not just for economic growth, but also as part of the social fabric of our communities. People want high streets to thrive. People want cafes, small shops, small businesses, pubs in our local neighborhoods to do well. But at the moment, they pay a disproportionate amount of tax through business rates. So we want to rebalance the system to create a level playing field to give those small businesses a bit of an extra support to make sure that they really can succeed and play the role that we all want them to in our local areas.
So you basically mean an Amazon tax, a tax on online businesses?
Well, Amazon's a good example. That's the one people quite often give when you think about online giants. And if you compare, the way that you might buy, a book or another item through Amazon, you obviously buy that online. But if you're going into a high street shop, that shop is paying far more tax in terms of business rates because they're paying for their bricks and mortar premises. And what we want to do is rebalance the system to make sure that those high street shops, those high street businesses get extra support, get extra help from the government to make sure that they can succeed. And the way we give that extra help is by rebalancing the system of business rates to shift the burden away from high streets toward the online giants, helping those high street businesses to thrive.
Haven't you tried this before? Last year, you reportedly abandoned plans for £3 billion of tax on tech companies like Amazon, but you rode back because of fears over a trade war with the US?
Well, I think what you're talking about was a very time-limited response that we set out to give businesses support. That was a time-limited response, a sort of post-COVID in terms of the policy we set out there. The policy that we're setting out now is within the envelope of business rates. It's a business rates property-based taxation. This is not talking about any separate taxes, and it's revenue neutral. But this is about rebalancing the burden within a business rate system by replacing the current system of business rates with a fairer system that supports high street businesses.
OK, I want to ask you about an article that Boris Johnson has written in the Mail. He says that Keir Starmer wants to change the relationship fundamentally with the European Union. Would you take this opportunity to kind of clear that up? Can you rule out that Labour government would pay into the EU budget?
Well, look, we've been absolutely clear about our red lines when we're talking about the EU. There is obviously Brexit is done. We now need to make it work. And that's the situation that we face. We've said we are not going to rejoin the single market, the customs union. We're not going to have freedom of movement again. We're very clear what our red lines are when it comes to the relationship with the EU. But within those red lines, we think there are things that are within our national interest to improve, whether that's reducing frictions when it comes to trade, whether that's mutual recognition of qualifications. There are areas where we need to reduce frictions to improve our economy by strengthening our relationship with the EU when it's in our national interest. And that's what we want to set out to do. And actually, a lot of this is achieved through hard graft. It's rolling up your sleeves, working out what deals we can get to improve our economy, improve trade. It's in our national interest to do so, and that's what we would do if we won government.
OK, James Murray, thanks so much for joining us on The Hub this evening.
Thank you.